What is good, people? Welcome back to another video on 8 Count. In today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at the main event, which is going down tonight between George Kambosos Jr. and Devin Haney. A really intriguing matchup, and I almost forgot about putting this video out. I thought it was next week for some reason, but anyway, guys, let's get straight into it. If you do enjoy the video, please leave a like, comment down below, letting me know who is going to win this fight and how, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content, all things boxing, MMA. Let's get straight into it, guys. Yeah, crazy one for me. For some reason, I thought it was next week, but I caught a couple of the interviews in the week, and I caught the weigh-ins last night, in which George Kambosos initially came in overweight by 0.3 of a pound. He weighed in shortly after and made the weight clearly, said all the bouts are on the line and both men can win the bouts. But for me, I think this fight is super intriguing because I think you got a guy who is probably the worst matchup for each other here. I think Devin Haney is definitely the sort of fighter who could cause George Kambosos problems. And I think George Kambosos is the sort of guy who's going to give Devin Haney problems. If we take a look at the guy's records, you know, Kambosos 20-0, 10 knockouts. Devin Haney's 27-0, 15 knockouts, you know. Pretty similar KO ratios. I don't think either of these guys have the most, you know, outrageous power in the division. But I think what both of these guys do have is that ability to kind of shock people with the quickness of their strikes and also, you know, not loading up and stuff like that. But I mean, we look at the last 3 opponents for each of these guys. We'll take a look at Kambosos, a split decision win over Teofimo Lopez, a split decision win over Lee Selby, and a split decision win over Mickey Bay. And I think with all of these wins, it looks a bit dodgy on being all split decisions. But in my opinion, looking back on all the fights, I think they probably should have been unanimous decisions for George Kambosos. I think you'll remember in the Mickey Bay fight, he dropped Mickey Bay really bad in that 10th round with an uppercut on the inside. It caused him all sorts of problems. On the other hand, we have Devin Haney. He's won his last 3 fights by unanimous decision. One against Jojo Diaz, Jorge Linares, and Gamboa. And I think, to be fair, other than the Linares fight, I think Devin Haney in his career has been like super professional as a fighter. He's always made sure that he's getting the W. And for me, I think it's something which is very respectable. But I think from the outside looking in on it, you can probably see why he's not the star he is in boxing at the moment, because with the skill set he has and possesses, he should be one of the biggest stars in boxing. But I think the fact that he doesn't always fight, you know, with a fan-friendly sort of style, you know, it's probably why he's not a much bigger star, because the guy is so skilled everywhere. You know, for me, I think he does his best work, Devin Haney, when he is the one controlling the range. And for Devin Haney, some of his best weapons, you know, he likes to throw behind the jab, and his jab is just out of this world. He's able to basically reset his opponent so many times with the jab. He doesn't just throw it once. He'll double and triple it up. And for me, I'm a big fan of his skill set. I think, you know, defensively he's very sound. And, you know, excluding the Jorge Linares fight, he's looked really good defensively in most of his fights. I think in the Linares fight, you kind of saw that you can get him to fight emotional, and I think all the critics going in on him for not having the most fan-friendly style kind of got to him, and I think he wanted to make a statement against Linares, who basically said that, you know, Haney was going to run from the first minute of the fight. And I think, you know, his style was really impressive. I think he showed how underrated he is on the inside. I mean, he was doing some great work against Linares. Yes, he got caught here and there. And it wasn't until like the 10th round which he got really badly stung. And after that, I think he went back to playing it safe, which also, you know, I guess within the fans, they didn't like the way he went about it, basically looking to clinch out to the rest of the fight. But I think if you look at the first 10 rounds, it was one of the best Haney fights and most entertaining Haney fights I think I've seen. The Jojo Diaz fight was a very good performance from Haney as well, against a pressure fighter, in which, you know, I think the Jojo Diaz one's a bit different because of the fact that he's a southpaw. But I think if you look at the Linares one, you can kind of make a comparison with Kambosos here. But for me as well, you know, the counter punching of Devin Haney makes him a problem, you know, because you don't want to go in and, you know, just he's waiting on some sort of shot to hit you back with. Like I said before, you know, this guy is basically a jack of all trades. You know, I feel like he's really good when he's fighting in that more aggressive style, but he's equally as good on the back foot. You know, he's able to, you know, control the range with the jab, which I said before, and, you know, the way he throws stuff behind the jab, which is really impressive, because I think in boxing sometimes you do see people who fall in love with the jab and they forget to throw behind the jab. Devin Haney isn't one of those people. For George Kambosos, you know, he's a really, you know, entertaining fighter because he's a come forward, high pace, you know, sort of pressure fighter. He does the best of his work when he's on the front foot. I think in the Teofimo Lopez fight, you kind of saw a bit of a different Kambosos in which, you know, you saw him kind of load up with that looping overhand, which knocked down Teofimo in the first round. But for me, I think which makes him so special, well, what makes him so special is the fact that he doesn't load up much and he throws in combinations. And that's the thing with Kambosos. You know, I think he has vulnerabilities in this game which are pretty clear, but I think he makes up with it with some of the things that he does. I think a lot of people notice the fact that he is vulnerable to the jab because I think he leaves his right hand pretty low. At times he does bring the right hand up and push the left arm out so he can frame out. But I think a lot of the times, you know, he is vulnerable to the jab. And if you look back at the Mickey Bay fight, Mickey Bay was having so much success with the jab. But the thing is, if you're only going to throw the jab, he is going to, you know, come back at you with a combination, and, you know, it's going to look better on the judge's eyes. But like I said, the short shots, you know, he doesn't need to load up much to really hurt you. Like I said, neither of these guys really have that sort of power, which is just like one punch knockout, you know, you're in the never realm. But with Kambosos, he is able, when he gets on the inside, he doesn't need a lot of, you know, space, because his punches can be so short at times and so quick that, you know, they can really stun opponents. I think you saw that in the Mickey Bay fight as well with that uppercut, which was so, you know, impressive, I guess you could say. I think he does a good job at controlling range. Like I said, you know, when he isn't feeling it, he's very good at getting out the way. I think his footwork is really good. I do think his head movement is lacking a bit. At times it looks brilliant, but then other times in his fights you kind of just see that he, you know, I think he maybe lulls a bit and he is a bit susceptible, like I said, to the jabs. And, you know, I think his best weapon though is his left hook. You know, he's able to mix up head and body. Like I said, he throws combinations, he uses the right hand a lot as well. But for me, looking at this fight, you know, between Haney and Kambosos, it is, you know, a fight of, can Haney put stuff behind the jab? And if he can, I think he's going to give Kambosos problems. But if he doesn't, you know, I think Kambosos may be able to put on a pressure sort of style fight where he's able to cut off the rings at time and throw the more eye-catching combinations and win a decision. Before I did a bit of research last night and went through, you know, the past 3 fights for both guys, I was leaning towards Kambosos. But after watching the highlights and the full fights from Devin Haney, I find it hard now to think that he isn't going to be able to put stuff behind the jab. And with the fact that I do think Kambosos is vulnerable to the jab, I think he's going to have a long night. You know, like I said, Haney can fight on emotion, and that's one of the worries for me in this fight, is that both guys could be affected by it. You know, Kambosos, especially recently, he's been fighting outside of Australia, in the US, where, you know, it's not really his territory, and he's been putting on amazing performances. I think you look back to the Lee Selby one, and that was one of the most impressive ones for me. Selby looked to get the jab going, but he couldn't get it going that night against Kambosos, who was just all over him. But for me, I think the fact that he's at home, is he going to feel the pressure to maybe put on a show, maybe get the finish, and is he going to rush into something? That's definitely a possibility in my mind. Another one is that you see Devin Haney with, you know, a bit of a chip on his shoulder, and, you know, you can see he is, I guess you could say, a bit hostile towards Kambosos, which is obviously quite normal in a boxing match, but, you know, he seems overly emotional, I feel, at times, and I could see him maybe going towards the style of Linares. And I think if he can't get Kambosos out of there, I feel like a counter left hook at some point in the fight could kind of change the night. If I'm going for my decision right now, I'm going to go with a Devin Haney decision. I was leaning towards Kambosos, and to be honest, I am rooting for Kambosos, but in my mind, when I think about who is the more skilled fighter, I think it is Devin Haney. I think he's got more ways to win the fights, not per se in such of finishes, but I feel like in the case, you know, if he needs to switch up the game plan, he can do that. You know, he's good at switching the angles and stuff like that. I think he's going to give Kambosos problems all night. I think you might see Kambosos maybe take the first couple rounds, but I think you'll see down the stretch Haney just pull away from him. So I'm going to go with Devin Haney by unanimous decision, guys. Please let me know in the comments down below who you think is going to win and why. I think it's an intriguing matchup because I think there's multiple ways this fight could go and different things happening could change the result. But let me know what you think anyway in the comments down below. Sorry for the upload being so late. Obviously, I was meant to do this probably earlier in the week, but I forgot the fight was this week. My bad. But yeah, guys, I will be doing a reaction to this fight on probably Monday or Tuesday. So if that's something you might be interested in, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Hit the like button as well, guys, if you did enjoy the video. Comment down below, as I said, let me know who's going to win and why. And I'll see you next time. Have a good weekend, guys, and take care of yourselves. Peace.